we'll just hop into it. You guys want to just, I guess, introduce yourselves, like a little bit about your background, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure, go ahead.
Greg, you all right? So my name's Jacob Martin. I'm an attorney. I'm here in Malibu right now. So, been in LA for like 5 years. I interned during like the ICO boom in 2016, 2017. So I got to see a lot of gray spaces and just preparation for like what is this thing? What's a security, whatever. And then started a blockchain company myself and raised a small amount of funding and tried to build out like a wills and trust like platform so that you could just skip the courts. The tech was the hard part. We had interest from a couple Fortune 500 banks and met with them a lot. And then, I've been working with startups for a while, and I guess I'd say 3 months ago now, I became aware of NFTs, beyond crypto kitties. But I, didn't give it like full faith effort until, maybe 8 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. And then now I'm just 16 hours a day, not really sleeping, working on a ton of interesting stuff in the space. I've kind of got like the law side, the technology side, the business side. So I'm having really fun conversations every day and working on some super cool deals. So that's me. And I met Greg through Clubhouse, which is where all good things happen. So Greg, go for it.
Absolutely. And I'm a little less traditional to this entire space. First time I even dove into blockchain was that Beeple drop where he had the open edition. So I did not lead any ICOs. I did not deal with any cryptocurrencies prior to this kind of movement taking off. I did a lot of litigation and insurance defense, actually, which is as boring as it sounds. But I have that courtroom experience, and then on the side, I was doing a lot of music/entertainment law for low-income artists out in Chicago. So that's where I was getting my experience in this entire space when it comes to soft IP, your copyrights, any kind of infringements, So I got into this space, like I said, with those Beeple open editions, bought one of those puppies for 900, flipped it for 5,000 3 days later. Last time it sold, it's probably right under 200,000. So it still tortures me, but ultimately I considered my tuition. I paid, whatever the opportunity cost that spanned throughout time. I did buy other pieces and I learned from it. And I've made a lot more than I've made being a lawyer on this space.
That's awesome. Jason, you
Yeah, sure. So I was gonna say, Greg, I'm in the same position as you. I bought a Beeple for $969, sold it for $5,000. I was thinking we should probably start a support group for everyone else who did that. I know it's hurting me right now, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone else. But yeah, my name is Jackie, and my screen name is JsunDerulo, and I'm a moderator for the Nifty Gateway Discord. I'm pretty young. I graduated from college last year with a degree in business administration and kind of got involved in the Nifty space around, I would say like October, early November. It was during like Trevor Andrews' like first Gucci Ghost drop. Since then, I've had a lot of fun, being on Clubhouse, talking to different people in the community. Me and Greg actually met in like the Discord DMs, as many of these things go. But yeah, overall, like I've put in a decent amount of money into Nifty Gateway and NFTs, and I'm excited to watch the space grow.
I feel wildly bamboozled because this entire time of me talking to you, I thought your name was Jason. Like, just wildly bamboozled.
Yeah, pulling a switcheroo on you last minute, man.
Yeah. I guess, like, as far as not to focus on like any like the negatives, right, of short selling things, right? But like, what's been your guys' like favorite drop within like the space so far that, like you're just never gonna sell or whatever? I mean, Greg, I met Greg, unbeknownst to like this event happening where he won the Ferocious guitar, and that like blew my mind.
And I did move that guitar rather quickly because, even though I am long on this space, it's also, it's a nice balancing act, especially from someone because I dealt with markets over the last like 5 years as well. I invest my own money, my family's money, and it's something I'm familiar with. So, when something is at a price. I like profit gathering, and I'm sure that guitar is worth a lot more than I sold it for now, considering 888 bought it also. So, ultimately, I would say that's my favorite piece, but I'm not holding it anymore, so I can't say that. Right now, it's got to be Fucker Under's Soul Stone, which I know he's got some grand plan for it in the future that I'm holding on to.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then me, it's funny, I've just like started dabbling, I guess, because like I've been, like I said, I've been in the weeds doing the lawyer stuff and like not so much the buying and selling. I think and my wife and I, she's making me like tiptoe into it, obviously, because she's like, wait, you're gonna spend how much on what? So like I bought like one of Blau's, faces, and then sold that for more than double. I was like, oh, that's a good toe in the water. And then Stephen Balte's drop with the Kanye egg and Gusher. I think Gusher's a piece I might keep for a while. Like I think we have the price set some stupid like $7,000 or something for like one we paid $1,000 for. So if I get 7x for it, okay, darn, pry it from my hands. But if not, it's like I think that one's a pretty cool one that we'll probably stick on for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think like short selling and quick flipping is a really interesting like discussion to have. For me, it's like as much as I talk about like selling that people for $5,000 as a bad thing, that sale actually like opened my eyes to like what the NFT community and the whole like market could become. And without that like profit taking in that moment, I don't think I would have been able to buy all the other pieces that I own now. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that sense. But for a piece that I'm holding forever, it's got to be The Last Stand of the Nation State by Slime Sunday. I missed out on primary. It was before I joined the Nifty Gateway community. But I actually bought this piece for I think $75 in December, and I just checked it yesterday, and I realized that I bought it from Griffin, like the CEO and founder of the company. I had no idea beforehand, but that definitely makes it more interesting, and it's a piece that I'll be holding for a while for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you where like those like initial, even like lower end sales, like comparative to now, it feels like, you shot yourself in the foot. But for me, at least, like I totally agree where like that's like that confidence builder to like help me to transition some of my like crypto holdings from, the bull run of 2016, 2017 into the bear market for the past 3 years and be like, all right, pry this from my cold dead hands to being like, all right, maybe pry some nifties, like that's been kind of like a transition for myself. I guess like so you guys, so Greg and Jacob, you guys are both lawyers, right? So like how did you guys decide to like actually hop into the space, right? Like the same as me transitioning ETH to NFTs, like you guys transition jobs fully into like the NFT space. So like that's obviously awesome.
Sure. And
Yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
you probably have a better story, so I'll go first here. You can finish. But ultimately, with me, it's the transition was pretty commonsensical. Well, at least after I gained some money, specifically after I sold that guitar and a few other pieces, and I had a means to sustain myself along with this hobby, which I'm trying to turn into a career, full-blown career. But since I've dealt in the music space and that's where I want to go, the plan is to move to California in a year and a half because my fiance is from California and she finishes her residency in a year and a half. So, I'm just kind of gearing things up for this final transition of being fully in this entertainment space and specifically in the NFT space because what I see coming from it and where I see it headed. And the fact that there are so few attorneys that understand what's going on here because we skew a lot older, it's a profession for dinosaurs and you talk to any attorney and it's a mess, you even in this space, anyone in entertainment's fairly kind of in with the technical space, but even those attorneys now cannot get a grasp for this at all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that approach, and I during the ICO boom when I was interning, I was like, well, nobody knows what they're doing anyways. I could become more of an expert as a student studying 12 hours a day, only blockchain legal issues, than another attorney who's working an 80-hour week on securities law already, then trying to learn blockchain, if that makes sense. So like when you think of how much side learning an attorney can do, or like how much new info they can take in while they're already working a 60 to 80-hour week, if someone like myself turns this into an 80-hour a week only on NFTs, or somebody did with the ICO boom, then it's not like all of a sudden I can claim I have 10 years of experience doing something. But when the space is more or less only legitimately 6 months old, and someone like myself can say, okay, 3 of those 6 months, I've been 80 hours a week, and I've worked with some of the earliest projects and some of these drops and some of these, I guarantee you, I've seen some of the first cease and desist letters in the space. I've got companies that I'm talking to that are raising crazy venture funding. A couple of athletes and agencies have reached out to me. And, you know, it's kind of like, they're like, okay, look, you're 25. Do you really know what you're talking about? And then after half an hour, they tend to realize like there is a legitimate language barrier to the NFT space, because it's not just what is blockchain, what is Bitcoin, what is Ethereum. It's like 14 more words down the rabbit hole to get to minting and gas and taxation and wallets and split wallets and this and that, right? So like the language barrier alone, someone asked me to look over a licensing agreement last night for like a deal between a Fortune 1000 company and a big Hollywood company. And they're like, how do we apply NFTs to this contract? And I'm like, sure, I could type out an answer, but you're going to read it like it's Latin. Mm-hmm. Like we need to have a 2 or 3 hour sit down and maybe even a whiteboard so we can talk through the business mechanics and the technology mechanics. And then we can get to the legally binding part of what can and can't be done. And so that's kind of what I've found is like, I kind of have my tagline on my website and stuff is like, am I the NFT attorney? Maybe. Like, I don't know that anybody can or should claim that they are the guy on anything, but I'm definitely one of the few that's just head down, full days, up at 7, going to bed at 2 a.m., like cranking on this, and I will for a while. So I'll probably kind of be out front on a lot of it, you know, and that's been super fun so far.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, I mean, you know, we're already starting to see some of the issues, right? Where like, you know, some of the bigger name AAA studios coming in, hitting people with like the cease and desist. I saw a piece of like Lilo and Stitch, and like I was like kind of tentative on like buying it, but then I'm like, Disney's gonna like knock my head in if I like resell this even. Like I feel like, so like, I guess first question first, right? As far as like the space, right? Like what are some of like the most common issues of, you know, whatever, I don't know, illegalities or like things that somebody like Disney is going to come after you about that are like currently being committed in the space?
Yeah. So the 2 biggest issues I'm seeing right now, one is infringement, and then one is like asset custody. So like a collaboration deal between 2 people or 3 people or whatever. When we're talking crypto, we're already talking about one of the most paranoid things in the world. You hide your private keys on a piece of paper somewhere in the universe that only you know. So first of all, that's why I built my last company, which was when you die, your spouse, your family, or whoever, they don't get your stuff because they don't know how to get to it. So what happens when 2 people collaborate and one person just chooses not to share from that wallet to the other party? What are they going to sue over if there's not a contract, you know? And then what if they do share? Who's going to have the tax bag? Right? Only the wallet who's receiving the funds is going to get taxed for the receipt of funds. And, you know, all of this can be, you know, navigated, but it requires paperwork, honestly, until the smart contracts can split royalties automatically. That's the number one thing I see, not from infringement. So that kind of misses the question you asked, but that's the biggest, like from the artist side, making money. That's the biggest gap I'm seeing. From the infringement perspective, so many celebrities want to do their own NFTs that when somebody's posting like a paparazzi photo or like a pretty typical photo that other people would put on their Instagram all the time and the celeb would never go after, now they're just like digitally altering it a little bit, calling it an NFT. And the celebrity's like, whoa, wait, I want to do NFTs. You can't do an NFT of me. Mm-hmm. Or can you? I don't know. I've crafted response letters to 2 cease and desists from celebrities over photos. And more or less, I'm just like, look, I think that the photographer wins for these 3 reasons legally anyways. But even if they don't, this is a novel issue and it's going to go to the Supreme Court. So you can be that guy. You can be the celeb that takes the tiny photographer to court and does this for the next 6 months, and you're that guy. Or we can figure something out or talk about it. I don't know. Maybe you should work with the photographer. And then Disney, which probably actually answers your question. The IP is so hard to distinguish between what is fan art, what is parody, and then like what is actual infringement. So if it's like a comic book artist or someone who was commissioned to actually create Lilo and Stitch on the inside, and it was a total work for hire, and then they're just reusing an original one of one that they made for Disney, sketchier territory, right? But if it's fan art and it's someone who worked on Lilo and Stitch, but in their personal capacity, they're just doing like a hand-drawn oil painting of Lilo and Stitch in an interpretive way. I mean, you'd have to go on Etsy and Disney would have to sue everybody that sells anything with any Disney stuff on it. And that's just not going to happen either. So gray space for sure. But I think if it's on a platform being sold and you're like, wow, I want that Lilo and Stitch, but what can Disney do to me as a secondary buyer? Unless you're purchasing something that's clearly listed as an illegal good, there's nothing Disney could do to you for you owning it as a secondary buyer. The platform's going to get sued for letting it get posted. The creator might get sued for infringing on IP. And then maybe they would attach you as like a John Doe random wallet who happens to purchase it. But Maker's Place and Nifty, they make you claim that everything you're posting, you own the rights to anyways. So you, ignorant to whether it was actual infringement or not, it seems to be like it's not infringement or it wouldn't be here on the platform. So I'm going to buy it, right? I hope that makes sense. That might be too much content there, but.
No, that's good. You want to hit it, Greg?
Yeah, and I'm going to echo a lot of what Jacob just said, but ultimately it's just all infringement that I'm seeing right now. It's essentially, you know, whether it's a studio, a celebrity, whatever it may be, you know, sending a cease and desist and saying, hey, you're either copying our work or, you know, you're using image and likeness of a celebrity. And these are 2 things that they're attacking. And the biggest thing is a lot of times this is going to go down to fair use. So, you know, they have the right to sue you at that point. It's just you have a defense. So this is where it gets very, very problematic, because a lot of artists don't understand that, you know, just having this fair use argument doesn't make you immune to a lawsuit. It just creates a defense for you, you know? So I have a couple of pieces, you know, and I think I read somewhere that I have a couple of the first Boss Logic pieces on Nifty Gateway. And I read somewhere that he actually had the license prior to, but then Marvel, DC, I forget which one, I'm not good with the superhero universes, but they ultimately, you know, pulled the license for his second drop, and that was a big, big issue. And, you know, now I'm holding the pieces that I believe were licensed, but I can't say for certain. And like Jacob was saying, ultimately, when these attorneys come knocking, they're not going to be able to find much, because a lot of these people hide very, very well. You know, it's the crypto space. But these, whether it's Nifty Gateway, Makers, whatever it is, these gateways, domains, communities, they have certain information that these attorneys could dig through and ultimately possibly find you. So it's a bit problematic, but as of right now, it's, I'd say 90% of it's just infringement. You know, it's someone taking something they shouldn't.
So going off of that, obviously infringement issues are huge, but who would you say the onus is on to make sure that they're not infringing on these potential legal issues? Is it the creators themselves, or is it the platforms that are hosting the creators and allowing them to like sell their artworks? And like, what steps can platforms take to protect themselves and the artists from like these sorts of issues in the future?
Yeah, this is the big question that's going to be answered in the future, because right now, yeah, we don't know whether it's going to be these domains or whether it's going to be the creators. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a, you know, combination of both, where, you know, you can name both of them, and it's like think of like a car accident, where a certain amount of people, someone crashes into the back of your car, and then someone crashes into the back of the car that crashes into yours. There's going to be several people at play here, and there might be several people that are going to be found, partially guilty, for a lack of a better term, here. And I think that's where it's going to end up ultimately. How long it's going to take to get there, I cannot guess at all.
I think the only thing I would add to that is, like, so take Nifty or Maker's Place, take like a couple of the major players doing drops. I think the drops will implicate the platform, right? Because it'll be like a co-branded, worked on together, making sure that the IP is legit and new, and that's different than random person X minting something and saying this is mine. So that is where, like with Twitter and Facebook and stuff, when you've got the difference between the Wall Street Journal controlling what's on the Wall Street Journal's website, and then Facebook not being able to control what's on Facebook and claiming, oh, we're not a publisher, we're just a resource, right? We're just an open market for speech. But Facebook and Twitter continue to go through this, doxing certain things or improving certain things. And so if Nifty or Maker's Place, and I'm just saying those two because they're the two doing probably the most consistent and biggest drops right now. I think if they do something co-branded, like but the Boss Logic drop, like if the license had been pulled and then Nifty went ahead and helped him post those things, either way, knowing that DC wasn't cool with it, both of them are going to court, period. Like Boss Logic and Nifty are both getting hauled into court, and they would both be found liable for knowing that the license wasn't in play, and boom, they infringed. But every random person doing something that may or may not be infringing, I mean, if the platforms themselves can say, click this box to prove this is your IP, click this box to prove that you indemnify us should you be sued, click this box to prove that you'll pay your own attorney's fees should you be sued, right? Like, right? Like, just submit everything. And I think the platforms that have like KYC and AML in place really well, so that no random person can be minting, right? Like, it's a well-known person with a US bank account or whatever the rules need to be. That's what the platforms are going to have to do to really just push off that liability and say, no, don't bring us to court. We did our best. We did our part. But they'll be the ones going to court for sure. Did you guys see what Zora did with the Disney piece, the Disney copyrighted piece?
No.
Okay, so I haven't talked to the people at Zora, but there's a piece posted on Zora. I can drop it in the chat here as well while we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a piece posted on Zora by Womp Womp Womp, and it literally says, not licensed by the Walt Disney Company. I'm Mickey Mouse and I smell like rotten eggs. Haha. This is not a parody. We did commit copyright infringement and we want to be sued by Disney. We pay all court and tribunal fees. So they just went for it. And if you look at it, it was not sold in the market and it wasn't burned, but it was transferred into Jacob's wallet, who's one of the co-founders of Zora. So Zora said, not on our watch, we're not letting this thing sell on our platform because we're not getting pulled into court with you. If you want to do this, go do it somewhere else. And I haven't seen any releases about it. I haven't talked to the people at Zora, so I can't tell you like exactly what went down or why. But this is a really interesting piece where it's clear infringement. It's clearly on a platform, and they're asking to be sued. They're like, Disney, we know we need to go to court and figure this out. Come at us. And Zora says, not on our watch.
That's crazy. Yeah, I actually pulled it up and I put it up in front so everybody could see it. That's absolutely wild. Like, I don't know. I guess, did you do this? Is this you trying to push the lawyer space of NFTs?
I wish, dude.
That would be a meta strategy right there, Jacob. Let's write it down.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I really wanted to buy Shlomo's piece a couple weeks ago, but instead I want to be Shlomo's lawyer, so I chose not to buy his piece because then I would be conflicted out.
So Greg, you mentioned that you think it's going to take a little while for like the actual space to catch up. I completely disagree on the sheer basis that every day feels like a week or a month, and like it just varies based on the day. Everything is just flying so fast. But Like, I guess if you are an artist and you're in like a gray territory, I have a twofold question, right? Like, if you're using some kind of an asset, right, that is whatever, let's just say Mickey Mouse, right? We're on the topic. So if you have some kind of a Mickey Mouse, right? Like, how do you protect yourself where it's actually in fair use? And then Jacob, you had mentioned photographers, and like, I guess second part of the question is like photographers, famous person picture, like where does that sit in terms of, fair use and otherwise?
Yeah. So let me hit the first half of that one. And fair use, that's it's going to be decided by the judge or jury, the fact finder. It's literally going to be, you can't define it. This is the gray area that's left for the court. So ultimately you could have a very, very, like, we could tell you, it's likely going to be fair use, or you probably didn't change it up enough. We could say these things, but we can't say it with certainty, because ultimately a lot of these judges, they're older guys, and they've been doing this for quite some time. They've seen it in the physical realm over and over again. But ultimately, one of the big elements of fair use is whether a piece is transformational. So what I've been trying to ponder in my mind is whether changing the medium of where this art is portrayed, published, whatever may it be, could be a part of this transformational argument. And I've been finding a lot that it is a big, big piece, So ultimately, you're going to be arguing that simply putting this piece on an NFT or creating an NFT from this is transformational also, but you'll probably need a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think the things that I've seen so far are like the most formal cease and desist letter I saw clearly didn't understand what NFTs were. They basically just made the same typical argument that they would normally make, which is commercial use of our image. You made it look like we were involved or we were promoting of your piece. Like you tagged the artist in the post on Instagram and blah, 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 right? So the transformative nature of like from a still photo into an NFT on a platform maybe is enough of an argument. But the second you start adding in like digital features like zooms and coloration and other things, like it's really, really hard to argue that they didn't do something transformative. And if the photographer took the photo in such a way that like normally happens, they have like a natural copyright. Like they own the photo, it's their photo. So it doesn't matter how famous someone is on like, oh, I exist in that photo, I can sue you. It's like, not really. But the NFT thing is making money off of that photo, right? So it's much more in like paparazzi territory, and like people sell photos to TMZ every day, right? Like every hour. So this is the part of NFTs where like I wrote a blog post about this the other day, but I feel really confident that like what law applies to NFTs is really like 90% stuff we already know. This is the 10% of gray space, right? Which is the transformational use, the commercialization of it, the secondary market, which platform's going to get sued, what is that infringing IP? Like that's only like 10% of the equation, because the rest of it is like deep copyright law, right? And like well-established paparazzi law. That's not a thing, but cases associated with paparazzi stuff. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's it's very interesting to like see the space and like hear the conversations that I've heard, but it's I don't know, I feel like if I was like an artist, I'd be like, let me just make my own character, like I don't know if you saw like Mr. B and like the whole superhero portion. I shared it in the chat. I wonder if Jason actually remembers which artist was, because I'd love to shout him out, but it was like the Dogecoin superhero, ADA like superhero, and Ethereum, and like I feel like you're just better off like making something totally new than even like trying something with like Superman just to cover your ass, right? Like it's one of those things where like I totally get where you guys are coming from, but I mean, how many heads has Disney knocked at this point in time from like a suing standpoint and just like ran them into the ground with like lawyer fees?
Yeah, I just had a great conversation actually a couple hours ago with someone who does art law. Literally, like he's from the UK and his focus is art and art law. And he was telling me that Disney had a really bad streak I don't know what year it was, but he said to the point where they were like shutting down kids' birthday parties that were like using their stuff and not paying for it, right? And so Disney, like, just like Nike had a bad rap at one point for stuff they did, right? Disney in the art community had a bad rep for like nailing their artists or like people using their IP in the most casual way. And so now, in his opinion, it's going to take a lot for Disney to actually even enter the space from a legal standpoint. And they'll only do it probably once it reaches a certain amount of like money to be made. Or, in my opinion, fully my opinion, I think they will probably not give clear guidance other than don't do it for the next like 2 years. And they probably won't sue unless somebody has a crazy sale. They probably won't sue. And then they'll have stuff floating on the different marketplaces. And then they'll create the Disney Plus NFT, right? Disney's own fully Disney IP, or they'll white label a solution from OpenSea or somebody who has kind of solved it, and they'll just control all of their IP, and they'll give their artists an on ramp and allow them to make a couple extra percent, even though it's all work for hire IP. I really think DC, Marvel, Disney, anybody who says, yeah, we paid you $5,000 10 years ago to make this piece for us, you don't get any of the resales, that defeats the purpose of NFTs. Like, the point here is kind of to support your favorite creators and let the artists partake and pump, right? Like, be excited about it. So I think Disney has a couple of important moves to make, and there'll be multi-billion-dollar moves either direction. I think they'll either make multi-billion and have goodwill, or they might lose a lot of goodwill and it might cost them, money they could have made for sure. That's opinion land.
And it definitely, it leads to the question of what will happen with existing pieces on the market. And, that's what I've been kind of considering and looking at, specifically, like someone like, or a group of people like Twisted Vacancy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what they did. They kind of knocked off artists, and I forget the artist's name. What was it? And Jason, do you remember by any chance?
I don't off the top of my head. I'll help look it up right now, though.
Yeah. It was like a lesser name, not a lesser named artist. I don't want to say that, but it was an artist that wasn't prominent in this NFT space. And they took his entire style, and there's certain pieces that they took exactly, like there's a mountain in one of the pieces where they literally copied and pasted it from one of his previous artworks. And it's only a portion, and you're going to claim fair use there. And this guy's, I think this non-NFT artist isn't going to press any charges because it's international, on top of the fact that he didn't sound like he was going to start any litigation anytime soon. But ultimately, people don't want to own those pieces. But people not wanting to own them also creates a sell-off, creates a stall, and creates scarcity. So, someone like 888 stepped into the space after this story came out, and he started buying up a bunch of these with the intention to burn them. Twisted Vacancy actually had a drop a week after this came out on Nifty Gateway that was stopped. And that's a very smart move by Nifty Gateway, because as we just spoke, if they're going to follow through, publishing this NFT essentially that they know has some form of copyright infringement in it, they could be held responsible for that, and that's the problems it does create. But it also creates, in my eyes, I think it creates scarcity. So I bought a few Twisted Vacancy pieces because ultimately they might sell for a lot in the future.
Yeah, the artist name was Artnex. I actually pulled up like a couple of the similarities, and like there's like a good article on it, so I just pulled up those images like side by side while you were talking about it. It's yeah, some of the assets literally like look one to one, but then from talking to some people where like they work more in the art industry, like the conversation is also that like if you were to rule out not one to one, right? But like copycat artists, right? Like people who are learning, right? Like how else should somebody learn besides, copying or like replicating their favorite artworks? Like that's also like a discussion point. And from what I've heard in terms of like people who are like really a lot more ingrained in the space than myself, it seems like a lot of the discussion there is that that is fair use where like they can do that. And so it kind of puts a weird spot in twisted vacancy where like, can you do that with a digital asset and like recollage other people's pieces? I don't know.
Exactly. And you know that, as they say, you know, everything's derivative, especially in art. And ultimately, with this one, I am right in the middle. I am not right in the middle on many of these fair use arguments where it's either infringement or not. This one, I have no idea which way the court would
Mhm.
settle on.
Yeah, I've heard the question multiple times of like, can I take 5 or 6 NFTs and smash them together, and is that, first of all, is that enough? And then secondly, can I take 5 or 6 pieces, do like a 20% change, like the transformative use kind of requirement, and would that be enough? It's like, well, I really wish we had an NFT focused court so they could understand your questions, because I really do think that those are great questions. The more money you make off of it, the more likely you are to be sued, right? And the more likely that, you know, it's going to require a litigious person, right? Like when it comes down to all of this, it's like, who are you infringing against? Because if you're infringing against a Disney or a Warner, like, are they litigious? Yeah, they've got entire legal departments that go to court every day over this stuff. But if you're infringing against 5 or 6 of your fellow artists and then you do something creative and whatever, I mean, they might see it as an homage, right? Like they might be happy that you did that or created that piece, but they might not, and they might sue you. So it'd be a lot easier to just go ask 5 or 6 people what they think of the piece, or can you have permission to use their piece? Because yeah, I mean, this really, like, I'm trying to do transactional work. I'm trying to help people set up their contracts, their platforms, the mechanics of how the assets move and the taxation and the legal stuff. But the stuff that the court's going to have to solve, like, I'll take on a couple of cases as they make sense. And I am open to going to the Supreme Court on this one because, like, somebody's going to have to understand the language of NFTs well enough to describe it to a bench with an average age of 72. So, like, there's people who go to the Supreme Court every day, but they're not going to have a clue what we're talking about either. So, you know, who are they litigious? What is the likelihood? Can you make a fair argument? If you can make a decent argument, figure out who's going to sue you, you know?
I mean, it's awesome to hear like how young you are relative to, you know, like most lawyers, right? But like I think it's just like awesome that like, okay, let's just say 6 months down the line, like first Supreme Court case, right? Like pretty likely, right? Like just honestly pretty likely that something has to get settled that way. And so 6 months down the line, like it's such a young man game that like there's a pretty, I mean, how many lawyers are in the space, right? Like not a question to answer, but like how many lawyers are actually in the space? Like the odds that you're one of the lawyers like representing this case is like pretty high at this point. And then on top of that, I can't imagine that like the average age between the two of you goes over 30. You know, like that's absolutely insane. And that's got to be really awesome where like holy shit, like this is awesome. You know, like that's a great opportunity to have.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
pretty.
it's been super fun. I'm talking to I talked to like one of the largest talent agencies in the country a few days, last week, and everyone else on the call was over 50, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to handle some of this stuff. And I'm their kids' age, and at first they're kind of like, "What's going on?" And then 20 minutes later, they're like, "Well, we don't know this space, and apparently you do. So we should figure something out." And it's like that's cool, right? Like Vitalik was super young when Ethereum came out, and Sam Altman was super young when he did his stuff. So like there's certain spaces like law specifically where if you don't have gray hair, like I have friends in a couple of different countries, and I lived in Indonesia for a bit, and they literally have like a cultural saying that like you want your attorney to have gray hair. So basically up until the gray hairs, you're just a grinder. Like you don't get to do anything relevant. And so I'm really enjoying having like high value conversations. And yeah, if Shlomo or one of these people finds a way to get sued by a Fortune 500 and they want to take it all the way, I think we're going to mint the cease and desist letters. We're going to raise $500,000 for a legal fund. I'm going to hire a couple of experts to help me get it right, and we're just going to go. And it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and I would take it a step further, and I'd say that you're not a real lawyer until you start actually losing hair, which is what's going on with me right now. And for full transparency, I'm 31, so you were right. Our average age is under 30. So thankfully, Jacob keeps me young here. And like I said, I was not familiar with this space until shit, it's been like 5 months. And like you said, time's a completely different concept in the NFT space. It feels like I've been here 10 years at least, but I've been here for 5 months. That's it. But, I've been dealing in the courtroom, I've been just deposing doctors, deposing gang members, deposing this, that. I've just been doing everything but technology-based stuff that I absolutely love. So to make this pivot is exciting, and to see kind of the pioneering that is going on in this space by young people, by this community, because even this community is amazing because they can smell an outsider from miles away. It shows in the mints that happen, when someone does a drop and they're kind of clearly not into it, just a money grab essentially. People will smell that and they will get a low number of mints. I've watched it for 5 months straight, and it's happened over and over again. I can tell you who's not going to get big mints. It's just, I like that I'm involved here. I love that all of you are very involved here, because this is where the pioneering is going to start. And this is who the community is going to trust. And this is how it's just going to keep it tight knit.
Yeah, I completely agree, Greg. And if you just go on the Nifty Gateway Discord, right, you can see there's a handful of artists who connect with the audience. They'll do giveaways. They'll talk to people just randomly, like Tetchin, for example. He's always on there just posting memes all day, right? Like building connections, like however they can. And to your other point, like definitely like everybody in the space and even outside of it is just trying to learn at like a hyper speed right now. I spoke to a CPA the other day, like regarding my taxes for next year about like NFTs. And he's like, the 60-year-old man had no idea what I was talking about. And actually had to talk to his son. And he was like, yeah, like it's like those crypto cats, right? And I'm like, yeah, similar. Like, and I also work for a pretty conservative bank. And even though like they're not doing any sort of crypto custodial services right now, like everyone's looking into it. And I kind of got into this space as like a hedge against my own career, right? Like if the banks go down, at least I'll be knowledgeable in crypto. And if they need someone to really like spearhead the effort to kind of integrate that into the bank, then I would love to be on the team that's having those discussions too.
Smart man.
Yeah. So for me, like seeing the community, right? Like we were talking a little bit about like clips and stuff like that. I would love for this to be the beginning of that clip, which is like if you are the lawyer trying to represent like Marvel or DC or anything like that, and you try and take down an artist. For me personally, like looking at like what I've seen so far in the space, right? Like where you see money grabs and everything like that. Let's just say, whatever, Disney wants to come into the space, litigate, sue the shit out of a bunch of people. Disney will never ever attain what they would have attained had they just came in thoughtfully, right? Like this is the pivot of like artists actually getting their due. And so like when you come in and you fuck the artist, right? Like you're literally just going to fuck all of your future revenue streams, where like I and a lot of the people that are like, I mean, we're basically almost OGs being 5 months in the space, right? Like there's people who are like, oh yeah, I started in February, and like, I started up my YouTube channel, and I'm like, cool, like that's awesome. But being in the space since like December, give or take, like you're just sitting there like, just feels so old. But like all the OGs are gonna sit there and be like, no, like I'm never ever going to buy your shit if you fuck the artist over, right? Like that's definitely going to come to fruition as far as that goes.
That's 100%. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I worked on a proposal recently for one of the like major trading card game companies in the world, and I worked with a couple of their original artists. I'll keep it vague because none of them have made final decisions, and lawyer client thing. But we turned in a proposal. I know it went to the creative director. I know it went to the legal team. I know it went to the executive team, and multi-billion-dollar company has seen my and this artist's 10-page pitch deck and 6-page memo, basically a research memo saying, here's the space, here's your current rules around what your artists can and can't do, here's the opportunity, here's what the NBA did, what do you want to do, how do you want to partner with your artists? Like They're either about to go wild and you're going to have to pull all their stuff down, or they're going to go wild and you're going to have to sue them, or they're going to keep waiting until you make a final decision because they respect you. And you'd make a lot more money if you work with your artists and they just pump you for being amazing than if you try to take this IP that you technically own a lot of, right? Not their one of one paintings, of course, but say you do NFTs of everything and you say screw the artists. The artists are just going to tweet and say, hey, fans, don't buy my stuff. Like, don't go buy the stuff. And it's going to turn from a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, a multi-$100 million revenue stream. It's going to turn into a nothing because there's not going to be a market for it or a sticky community. And I think every major company in the country right now that has relevant IP, whether it's like AR, VR type stuff like Ready Player One, or it's collectibles like trading cards and sports cards and whatever, the opportunity to work with the artists and double down on being like good guy company, like that opportunity is way too big for them to pass up casually. That's why they're not making quick final answers. I think DC was hasty to put their letter out, but they had to because people were posting so much without guidance. I won't be surprised if they retract it or if they set up like a DC creators fund or a DC creators opportunity to earn 5% of royalties on stuff they made, right? Like, I don't know how they'll do it. I'd be happy to have that conversation with them or help or whatever. But yeah, there's definitely going to be, did you choose to screw your team or did you not screw your team? And we will and won't support accordingly.
And to further go with your question, or not with your question, but with kind of your hypothetical of Disney coming in, ultimately my biggest worry is Disney is going to come in ignorant and they won't take the time to understand how community-based this is. And ultimately what will happen there is it's going to be the proverbial eye for an eye, They're going to come in, they're going to do damage, and they're not going to realize the damage they're doing to themselves. So ultimately, it's unfortunately going to be a lose-lose game. But in the long run, I think it'll be a good thing because either A, Disney will learn from it, or they won't come back into the space.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see Disney, kind of doing similar to what they did with like the streaming services where like, they come in, they partner with Netflix and then they kind of branch off and do their own. And like for me, like I'd love to see them drop on like Nifty Gateway or something like that and like do it thoughtfully and like really support their artists. Like I I think it's something that, so far like from like the Nifty Gateway side, like we've been doing like a really good job in terms of like educating, like we've really tried to, have like a good focus in terms of like that's what we want to bring to market is people who are educated in the space, who are coming in, not cash grabby, are trying to, like just hit this where like people want to collect their stuff, right? Like and that's like a great opportunity where I would hate to I want artists primarily to like get their due where like the interviews that I've been having like unbeknownst to me like how badly artists have been getting screwed for so long because I have zero talent whatsoever on the art side of things. That was never even on the radar. And so yeah, but like otherwise like I'd love to see people come into the space thoughtfully. And I think it's us as like the OGs, which sounds so cringy to me to say, but like just like the community at large is the better way of saying it, to like really help and like educate and like set a standard for people to come into like the space. So I don't know, I mean, like I hope that they come to like you, Jake, and like Greg, to actually just sit there and be like, okay, how do we do this, like what's the legalities, and then really like setting things up from that regard. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah, and the business consulting portion, and Jacob is well versed in this too. But ultimately, that's where I want to go to. My shift is going from the courtroom into the more transactional contract slash business consulting role of telling these people, hey, you can't do this. You have to understand this kind of the ecosystem that this is, because it's an ecosystem that you do one thing wrong, you're going to be kicked out. You're going to be eaten alive, whatever it is. So yeah, no, that's very, very hopeful at this point. And until these bigger companies learn that's the case, we won't see it, which is unfortunate, but hopefully they'll learn.
So Zinc City is in the chat right now. He posted up that Tops and Wax are going to be doing collabs and talking about like our card company discussion. And so he sent like the link in the chat, and so there's actually like Garbage Pail Kid NFTs and stuff like that. To that extent, right? Like for you guys as collectors, like what do you obviously from like a bare bones standpoint, like who doesn't make sense in the NFT space, but like for like a more personal standpoint, like who are you guys actually excited for them to like come into the space overall?
So you're asking who do I look forward to having, or
Mm,
who do I enjoy in the space right now?
coming into the space.
Okay, coming into the space. That's a great, great question.
Got one. I look forward to um a fully metaverse capable Lamborghini drop that's going to be like a Bitcoin Lamborghini that's like 2,500 bucks, open edition, and you can utilize the Lamborghini in the metaverse with your avatars, whatever, maybe Decentraland or something. Um, that one to me, that's when we start bridging the gap between collectible and practical. And that's kind of funny to say if you're still talking about a digital fake Lamborghini, but like something that you can utilize and has secondary market value because there's scarcity and you can like have fun with in your game. And then somebody would happily buy it off of you for more later because there's probably only going to be, let's say, 1,000 people at the high end who buy this open edition Lamborghini, Bitcoin Lamborghini, or even like Conor McGregor has a custom Lamborghini boat, like a yacht. Like Lamborghini made him a custom yacht. It was like $3 million or something. That's really cool. Like, what if you could buy a Conor McGregor Bitcoin yacht in the metaverse, and there was only ended up being, 1,000 of them? Like, that's pretty cool. So stuff to me that's going to be cool. It's definitely going to be, I think the gamification aspect of not just skins on your avatar, but like the Pharrell Chanel shoe drop or the Conor McGregor Bitcoin Lamborghini or stuff like that, where it's kind of co-branded. Maybe there's some collab, but it's like legitimately cool as like an art piece and as something that you can like roll around in or like have on your avatar. I think stuff like that's going to be really, really cool to see happen. And I'm not exactly sure the mechanism for doing that. Like I don't hang out in the metaverse personally. Not yet. I haven't gotten, at this point I don't have time until I can put my law office in the metaverse instead of this Airstream.
Wait till attorney billboards start popping up in the metaverse with Jacob's face on
in the
them.
metaverse. In the metaverse, and I'll be on my Bitcoin Lamborghini on the billboard saying NFT attorney. But I don't know. That's a thought of mine. Greg, did something come to mind for you?
Yeah. So specifically, person-wise, artist-wise, I think someone like give me like Murakami. I feel like if he hasn't already, which I'm not aware if he has or not, but I think he would be a really great fit because he does understand communities. He is very, very artist community oriented. So give me anyone like that, Um, and if Murakami drops, people would go wild for that if he takes the time to learn the space. And I don't think he would enter. Oh, I take that back. I can't tell you what he would do, but I think he would do a proper drop.
What about you? What do you guys think?
I personally, in terms of artists, I would love to see like Murakami for sure, Cause, right, Daniel Arsham, like all names that I think would really thrive in this space. And like you guys said, are probably the ones that would take it seriously as opposed to just coming in, grabbing the money and leaving. But in terms of like a more meta approach, I think the esports industry, I think there's a lot of space for them to enter. I know when you had Tommy on, he mentioned that as well, but kind of similar to what you said about the Bitcoin Lamborghinis, having in-game items on for games that already have established marketplaces, being able to translate that to different aspects of the metaverse, be able to use it in Decentraland, Sandbox, right? However you want. I think that interconnectedness that esports can bring will be huge, and I'm excited for them to enter.
Yeah. I think for me, like personally, it's not really like a who or like a what. It's really like the development of like the technology, right? So like to Jason's point, right? Like I'm super excited and like very bullish on like AR personally. Like VR, really, really cool, but you have to sit down for it, like mainly, right? Or like you have like those standing running things. And so obviously still pretty awesome, but like AR to me is like really where it's at. And then like if you can kind of control where you are. But like I'm imagining, right? Like Jason just brought up esports. Imagine you're in the middle of middle lane, fucking, like League of Legends, team fight is happening and you just get to sit in the middle of it, of like all the pandemonium live. Like that's where like because Jacob is talking about being able to take like the Lamborghini and stuff. I think that like the metaverse is going to be in the AR and VR aspect too, not just on just on your computer. And so then like that development of technology, like that's how I imagine it. Where like, or even just watching like an NBA game from center court and just being able to be like, okay, they're on that side, okay, they're on that side, right? Like never ever going to like another like Lakers or like a Knicks game unless you like really really want to see it, but still getting that like firsthand, like right up to the show kind of thing is like amazing to me. And then if we can all get 1%, then I really want to throw down on that Conor McGregor boat where please just throw Conor McGregor at the helm and just throw me 1%. We'll split 1%. Like it, just Conor McGregor going, where the fuck are we going? And like that's it. Like just like he drives the boat. Like that to me would be absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I was actually just talking. I really hope that I'm able to help make that a possibility because I've been chatting with someone on his team. So I really, really, really would love to see the Conor McGregor Bitcoin Lamborghini, whether it's maybe it's the boat and it's the car. Maybe he does both. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I think Conor's got a big opportunity as one of the most popular athletes in the world to really put some interesting stuff out there that a lot of people would use. He doesn't need $3 million, right? He doesn't even need to have like a $3 million Tuesday. That's just a Tuesday. That's just a watch for him, both. But like, it would be cool because he's already made a video game before. And this would be another way for him to continue to like push his brand and then just like cool stuff that his fans want to be a part of. So I don't know. I guess he actually stands out to me as someone near the top of my list of like, I think he could do something really cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, I'm going off your AR VR conversation. I think number one, I'm a Dota guy, so League of Legends. But ultimately, any live event, and I know they keep going back to this example of what's his name? God damn it, the guy that did the Fortnite, and I should know this.
Travis
Travis Scott, the Fortnite concert.
Travis Scott, he did the Fortnite concert. It's the exact same examples. That it's expanding that to these different realms of gaming, of sports. And music is a weird one because there is every single one of these sectors has kind of this live feel to it, but music I feel like is a lot more personal, a lot more I guess on the spot. But I think they do have a very good way to get in, and I don't think the answer right now is just dropping nifties like a lot of these artists and musicians are. From my standpoint, if these musicians just created their stubs on NFTs, instead of posters, instead of posters that you buy at the shop, you buy an NFT that shows you the tour and you have somewhere where you could centralize it, because ultimately that's such a memory sake. I still keep hold of my physical stubs from shows, so, but I lose some and it's an incomplete, kind of collection. This you could really, really create an extensive collection of. And even if you own those, whatever NFTs they are, the ticket stub NFTs, you have access to the archives of the actual live show. Have a cameraman there recording it and actually create a form of license to view that while owning that NFT. And I think musicians could go down this path and make such better money and implementation if they got a little creative.
All right, let me tell you what I think this would be my favorite thing to argue to the Supreme Court in the NFT space. I want to see a musician who has a 360 deal with a major label. I want to see, let's take Travis Scott because we're already there. I want to see Travis Scott, assume he has a 360 deal with Universal or something. I don't know. I want to see him go to the metaverse, have concerts, sell albums, sell like his masters, even tokenize his masters or tokenize his royalties or something. Full blown, if it happened in the real world, would violate the 360 deal. But somebody is going to have to make the argument that the metaverse is not within this universe. A 360 deal says you can't do anything anywhere within this universe. I want to see someone someone's going to have to make the argument with a straight face to the Supreme Court that the metaverse is not within this universe. Every transaction that occurred was done in sand. or some other metaverse currency. It never came out and came into fiat. It was done elsewhere. There's no jurisdiction. There's no venue. How do you sue someone in LA over something that happened in the metaverse, right? I think that is going to be, somebody's going to have a straight face and look the Supreme Court and say, nope, metaverse isn't this universe. Good luck. I think that's going to be really fun, and I would love the opportunity to do that. So shout out to any A-lister musicians who want to violate their 360 deal and do something in the metaverse. Happy to help.
Yeah, I personally would love to see
That's
that go
amazing,
down.
because they do use that language, you know, in the universe, and it's so fucking wild when you're reading that as a law student, like in the universe, like what year is it? What the fuck are we doing here? But ultimately, maybe this was the runaround for the 360s, which is, I'm sure that wasn't the intention of the metaverse, but my God, would it have a great unintended consequence?
I guess Jacob, you seem to be packing up. Are you on like a time constraint?
Sorry, no, I'm sharing this office with somebody, and
Okay.
he was packing up a bunch of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. I just wanted to check in. I didn't know if you were on a time constraint.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, I've got like 15, 20 more minutes, and then I've got to bounce.
okay. We just got.
I said I'm doing some 16-hour days right now. I'm like legitimately not kidding.
I understand.
So this was booked in my calendar so that I could do it, and it's off to the races.
All right. I guess I have two last questions. One came from the chat, and then we'll close off with the other one, which is, what are your guys' thoughts on the MetaMasks?
Like the MetaMask wallet?
I think he might mean
Hash masks, right?
I think he might mean hash masks. Yeah, I just read it straight through, but I think it's hash mask. He'll catch this, but yeah, I think it's hash mask. Unless, fuck, I'm a little bit of a moron when I just read off the script. I'm like Anchorman or whatever. But yeah, let's talk hash masks. Sorry.
I'm looking at it right now. I can say confidently that I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it, actually. I will say that every day I feel like I teach people 5-10 new things, and every day I learn like 10 or 20 new things, which is why I made the comment early on that, like, good luck to an attorney working 60 hours a week at a major law firm actually keeping up with the NFT space. It legitimately takes being in it every single day and asking questions like, why are people minting on wax right now? Why did Foundation have problems 2 weeks ago? Why did Nifty have problems last week? Like you just have to be deep in it to keep up. And honestly, I don't know anything about hash masks, so I'll look at it later. Greg, do you?
Yeah, no, I mean, hash masks, I've only had exposure through just clubhouses, and I've never actually done my due diligence and done the research into hash masks. So if I speak anything to it, it'll be completely ignorant, and I don't want to say anything there.
All right.
Do you want to tell us about hash masks, guys? Like, what do you think?
Jason, you want to hit it?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys. I haven't done too much due diligence into it. For me, it's sometimes I have the mentality of, like someone tells me like, hey, like you should buy this. And if I have enough money around, I'll just take a shot in the dark. The way I look at it is, if I'm investing in like 100 different things in this space, I only need like 5%, 10% of it to blow up. And that would pretty much cover all of my costs and make me like net positive. But in terms of the artwork, I think it's cool that they brought together a bunch of different artists to create something. And the fact that they made it like anonymous at first, it definitely drives the hype. But when I was trying to buy it the first day, I think gas fees were over like 2,000 or 3,000 like US dollars. And I just couldn't pull the trigger at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think hash masks, in terms of like the actual like safety of them, right? Like a lot of like they use names, but like they don't use anything else. And so I think it's pretty much like a gray area from what you guys were saying earlier, because none of it is like an original picture. None of it is actually even like the person's face. It just, the ones that I just pulled up for people just so they could see is, Trump, USA, Open Sea, right? Like those are two individual ones. And so there's like interesting things. And then, like okay, a little bit of like a better tangent question, right? Zinc City brought up, like clones, right? Like different clone projects, right? So like you see like CryptoPunks, right? And then there's like the apes, and then like there's all the other different kinds of like clones. Like at what point are you too similar to like the original CryptoPunk that you get sued, or is every iteration of a CryptoPunk its own?
A great question, and it goes back to once again, goes back to fair use and whatever judge you get in front of you. But with this space, I don't think the people encourage this derivative work within these communities. That's the kind of not most surprising, but most inspiring portion of these communities is they do want to encourage this, because even physical artists, they're trying to attack this space by saying, there's the pollution argument, there's and I'm not saying it's an invalid argument, I'm just saying they're trying to take many approaches to discount what's going on here. And I think it's a form of insecurity / jealousy. I don't know what it is. I think they just see a lot of money being thrown around, money that they never had the opportunity for. But the fact that they're attacking it instead of looking into it, maybe discussing it more, embracing it, whatever it may be, I think that's the issue.
I think that's a good answer.
All right.
I really want to briefly just touch on the aspect of like learning in the NFT space. Like it's from my experience, it's mainly just been, like getting immersed yourself, like going onto different Discords. Do you guys see like a more structured approach to teaching people about NFTs in the future? Where like as lawyers, I'm sure you must have to like explain to your clients what those are. And do you see some sort of like better way to do that?
Yeah, I've had I've gone from like 0 followers to like 1,200 followers on Clubhouse in like 3 weeks of just like actually talking about this stuff. I'm getting DMs left and right on Twitter and Instagram and emails and stuff. So one of the things that I've had to do personally is figure out how serious the person is that's reaching out to me before I like schedule a call and like kind of gauge where they're at. Because you don't need a lawyer right away. Just because I know what I'm talking about, first of all, doesn't mean you should pay me for that. Second of all, it doesn't mean that I have time to talk to you about it, right? So I do think there's going to be crash courses. Within the next 3 months, you're going to see more ebooks, more guides to NFTs, and more whatever than you could ever imagine. So for right now, props to OpenSea. I think the NFT Bible is the prime resource to start with for anybody who's serious about the space. I have people reach out to me. I ask, my simple thing is like, are you sure you need a lawyer for this conversation? Or like, could you tell me a little more what you want to talk about? And so I'm answering the question from a little bit of a specific perspective, but like long term, yeah, the answer is I say, here's a Bankless interview where Blau talked with the Bankless guys about music. Here's NFT the NFT Bible from OpenSea. That's 2.5, 3 hours worth of content and effort. If you can go sink those 3 hours worth of effort in, then hop in Clubhouse rooms, then call me, right? Like, because you'll know now if it's worth talking to me specifically. But either way, for artists, for whoever, like, there's a lot of goodwill in the community right now, and like Discords and Clubhouse and whatever, you can get a lot of free information that's really solid, as well as a lot of free information that's not solid, right? So I don't know though, because the community's having a hard time like charging for their services. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of free work and just never sleeping, and hoping that it works out. So I don't know. I think Discords, I think reading resources, I think watching videos on how to mint your first piece, just to understand the mechanics of the smart contract creation, the gas fees. Like it's kind of like getting an MBA in the real world instead of going to school, right? Like if you start a business and you raise some funding and you do it for 6 months, you don't need to go to school for an MBA because you know what you're doing. I see that right now as the best way to do it, unless someone is really just trying to throw assets in the tank, like a fine art collector, and they're just like, screw it, here's my money, go buy me some Beeples and sell them. And if they don't want to know, they don't want to know. But if somebody wants to like release their own, I think you just have to dig in to like a lot of different things.
Yeah. And I'm going to ditto a lot of that. It's essentially just what happened to me is I just immersed myself in it, just jump in the pool. That's all there is, because you're not going to understand it from just reading a guide about it. You're not going to understand how this community behaves, how excited they are. but also you don't want to get caught up in just, because I've been in a few clubhouse rooms where it's just all positivity, good vibes, this, that, and there's no concrete discussion of what an NFT is, where it's going, how do we make it better. It's just everything is good, everything's going to continue to be good, and that's that. You have to take a realistic approach with this, and listen to anyone and everyone you can, listen to their standpoints on it, listen to people that have critiques, because a lot of people have some good critiques that they're countering now, whether it's the charity auctions for just well, the Save the Planet charity auctions. Regardless, it's you have to immerse yourself. Well, get in on Clubhouse, get in on the Discord, listen to those around you, because you're not going to understand what the community is about unless you listen to the community.
Yeah, I'll say one other thing on that. I talked to a major talent agency recently, and they were like, we've got multiple drops lined up across multiple artists every, X amount of time over the next 6 months or whatever. And I was like, cool, only drop stuff from people who actually care about the space. Make them go do clubhouse rooms and not talk for 2 weeks, just listen. Then have them talk, right? Like, I think there's a process of like, you have to learn, you have to be there, you have to care, or it's just not going to work, period. And the second thing I would say is, I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but one of the most legendary film flops of all time was Valerian, which is like this pretty decent sci-fi film, right? This French-made sci-fi film. Oh no, did we lose me?
No, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Valerian,
No,
$200 million. It was the most expensive, well-financed French film ever. And somebody screwed up, and it released the same weekend as Dunkirk from Christopher Nolan in America. So a $200 million film that needed to make $300 million to justify it tried to compete with Christopher Nolan in America. That's so stupid. They literally lost $150 million in film. And it's because they didn't know the consumer base. They didn't know the community. And they're like, oh, we made a cool thing. People will buy it. And it's like, no, not when Christopher Nolan or Beeple has a drop that day. You idiots. We're not going to buy your thing.
Yeah.
And so that's a big parallel that I see as like clear cut here. Like, somebody messed up on that. And I think a lot of big artists are going to start whiffing by thinking, oh, well, I'm so-and-so. I made this out. I'm going to outperform some random NFT artist. And it's like, you have no idea who Stephen Balte is, but you're not going to outperform him on a Tuesday. Right? Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the NFT, like in terms of like what Greg is talking about, is like probably like 5-7-ish years ago, when it's like, oh yeah, it's in the cloud, like it's in the cloud, like that's like the kind of conversation that some people are having about like the NFT space. And like I totally get it, because it's still so new, but like that's like kind of some of the conversations that are happening. And like, what do you mean it's in the cloud? Like I don't know, where's the cloud, like, and like that's some of the issues that are happening where, yeah. But I guess I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. I'm pretty excited. Yeah, Zing City brought up, did anybody even know that Mahomes did a drop on Maker's Place? I did know. It was out of my price point, where I just...
Yeah, it was out of my price range too.
Yeah.
I saw it on CNBC.
Yeah. It was like super, super... I don't know. I can't... I don't have the bread for that. I just...
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and that right there is like, there's going to be certain collectors that bought it. I think it did a few $1 million in a day, right? I think it made a couple $1 million that day. But like, that's whales purchasing and then selling to other whales. Like, it's not community driven, right? Like, it's interesting to see things like, I think Blau's drop with the 300, 3,000, 6,000, whatever. Brilliant. But the only people who can purchase the $6,000 piece from you are people who can purchase at 6,000 and might purchase at 10,000. So it's literally different consumer bases for each piece. And Mahomes only did like this high level, like only whales could buy in, and then only whales can buy secondary. So yeah, was it a bad idea? No, he made several $1 million in a day and didn't do anything. I mean, I'm sure he did some work on the front end, but a team of artists did all the art.
Mm.
So yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
Once they start doing 5 athletes a week, though, it won't work like that.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, 100%. I fully agree with that. I guess in the interest of your time and everything like that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, no, no. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. Like, but I totally respect it. It's all good. I'm happy you guys are here. For you guys trying to get into the space, lawyers, like, what are you hoping for, like, 6 months, a year, 5 years out, like, for yourselves as businessmen?
Yes. So I'll go for me. In a very short amount of time, I've already been offered a couple of like advisor positions and equity in a couple of companies because so many people are raising money, and like that's cool. But ultimately, I'm only going to end up picking one or two horses if I do join a company, and because it'll preclude me from working with others, like with ethics and stuff. Like I can only work for one marketplace intimately.
Mm.
I could probably be an attorney for multiple, but that's like working for Apple and Google. Like you can't do that. And so what I'm hoping for me is I've already made a ton of friends with entertainers, with investors, with technologists. And 6 months from now, am I the NFT attorney? At that point, I mean, probably. That'd be great. But at the same time, I just want to be respected as a business person who can translate complex ideas that are legal in business. And then at some point, I'm just an attorney that people come to from this space that have technology, have venture capital, have art, have, just something on the cutting edge. I just want to be on the cutting edge. And maybe 5 years from now, it's something new. Maybe I am the metaverse's first attorney. I don't know. But like, I just want to stay doing things that are new and emerging because I know that that's just always required. Like that's Alexander Hamilton type stuff, right? Like that's creating new stuff and being a part of others doing it. And I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, and
Greg.
for me, every attorney's dream is to just go in-house. You bust your ass for a couple of years, billing 200 hours a year, more than that, or sorry, 2,000 hours a year, more than that, and ultimately, everyone's dream is to go in-house and work be just a corporate consultant essentially. So you're guiding a company through these business motions, whatever it may be. But I think there's so few of us, like we've been saying, I don't know if companies understand we're out there, number one. And I also don't know if they are willing to bring someone in like that, because I think they see this as a quick money grab and then they'll go on to the next thing. They don't see this in the long term. And that's what we've been seeing with these more, big firm drops, I want to call them, but essentially, like a Mahomes drop. Ultimately, that Mahomes drop could be huge for him in the future when just sports collectibles they're already going crazy in the NFT space. But say this style of sports collectible that Mahomes did becomes even a bigger thing. He's going to be the first, and that's going to be the most valuable, and that's the end of that.
All right. Well, thank you for the time. Jason,
Yeah.
what do you think? You're still sitting here. What do you think? 6 months to a year? Where are you? Puerto Rico? Where?
No, I think I'll still be involved in the space, like as an investor. I definitely want to start working with more artists. Right now, I'm working a little bit with like Clarence Maluda on his next drop on April 1st with Nifty Gateway. I see a lot of artists like trying to get into the space, but they're trying to understand NFTs for the first time as well, and they need a lot of guidance, right? And I would love to see like that community grow, like beyond just like producers on Nifty Gateway, but just people like you said, like OGs in the space who have been here, like help other artists like get into the space, and I think that would really help everyone grow as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, hey, if we do like a nifty meetup or something like that, we'll have to make some shirts. We'll have like the OG, and maybe we'll have to mint something for the fucking OGs, right? Like when somebody
Yeah.
checks that might be a
You
thing, right?
gotta.
That might be a thing. All right, yo, thank you so much for the time. Great episode. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I've been telling people 6 months to a year. I know your schedules are going to be insane, but like honestly, we might have to run it back in like 3 months because there's just going to be so much development in the space. So we'll keep. I'm gonna keep following you on across the social media platforms, and hopefully we'll run it back soon.
For sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, guys.
Sounds good. Nice to meet you guys. Nice chat.
Yeah, man. It was awesome. Thank you.
Good to have you guys.
Peace.
Take care.